Hello, people of Earth, people of church. Welcome back to the Yellow Bee podcast.
No, that's not. It's not. Nope.
Yellow people. Yellow box.
No.
It's also inappropriate. Yellow box. I'm getting it.
Wow. Welcome to the Yellow Box podcast.
We're so excited you're with us today. I'm Nick. This is Kevin. And Tristan is over there. We are all in the same room, which is kind of a rare thing. Mm-hmm. Doesn't happen very often.
Right.
So we got together.
Why doesn't it happen very often?
It doesn't happen because you guys live in Houston and I live in Tulsa.
I was going for the answer of because we're a decentralized organization.
Oh, we're not supposed to tell people where we live.
Yeah. So Tristan actually lives at insert address here. I'm just kidding.
I have yours too, Kev.
So why are we decentralized, Kevin?
Well, we actually decentralized during COVID and realized that we're way more productive as an organization, way more flexible when we're not required to centrally locate, to all work out of an office. And for us, it was an interesting journey, really. It became about like what mattered most. How do we build culture? How do we formulate processes and systems? And you don't have to have a physical space like you used to really do that. It's a mind shift.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're not thinking through innovation and reinvention within your organization or your church or your department on some level at all times, then
Right.
Are you really even a creative?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Wow.
That was too strong. I'm sorry.
I like it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are decentralized, but we're here. We're all in the same room. We've got our yellow box thing. I'm going to read it for the audience at home. We exist to inspire, encourage, and equip the local church with the resources, skills, and teams they need to communicate the gospel.
No.
The gospel.
I love how you said at home because like they could be in a car.
Yeah.
It could be like
In a plane.
In a plane.
On a train.
It could be
On a train.
At a lake. On the beach.
We were going for like the Dr. Seuss rhyme scenario, but like you
out in
broke it. It's
Spain.
okay. It's okay.
I didn't get it. I missed it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we
dire
exist to
pain.
develop creativity in the local church.
Yeah.
And that's what we're passionate about. Part of developing creativity is to develop creatives. And we're passionate about healthy creatives. We're passionate about healthy people. We're passionate about making disciples within creative teams.
Yeah.
And those people, like us, loving Jesus and loving church more and more, growing in their love for the local church and growing in their love for Jesus. And so tell us a little bit about what we're talking about on this episode.
So today we're talking about transitioning well. And what we mean by that is
Like from bedroom to kitchen and kitchen back to bedroom.
right, which are like couch to, wherever the snacks are kept and then back to the couch. No, we're actually talking about, leaving one position and moving into another. We're leaving one organization and moving into another. This is something that the church at large struggles with. And it's one of those things where we really don't know on both sides, on the leadership side to the person leaving and on the person leaving side, how to transition well. I think our only mode sometimes is, man, burn that bridge. I'm going to light that fire and watch it just
Pour gasoline on
just
everything.
point it at me like, you know what, a
Light the
peace
match.
out, burn, And so that's obviously not the way to leave an organization. But what forces people into those boats sometimes? And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how, some of our experiences, we're not like, this ain't one of them tell-all, documentary scenarios.
No, this ain't that.
This ain't that. So, but from our experiences, how we found peace in the journey, and how, we were able to walk through that. It's not the end of the world if you come to the end of the road at the organization you're at. It's harder because this is your family. This is your employer. These are the people that you've, quote, done life with for however many months or years. And it becomes harder to walk away and still maintain like a positive outlook on everything. And so what we hope to do today is walk through, some of the things that we did in that process to stay respectful, stay honorable, stay loving, and then also some suggestions of how, as an organization, we see, man, we can make some changes here. We can make some improvements here. If your only option is to burn the bridge, something's broken, either in the way you're seeing things or the way that the system is set up. So tell me a little bit about what transition looked like for you. So to be fair, so I've worked I spent 20 years in ministry.
It's amazing.
Before starting Yellow Box. And it was never easy to make a transition. I left situations that were good, and I left situations that were toxic. I've done both. And it's obviously still hard, even in a good scenario, to leave and leave well.
Yeah.
It's even harder when it's toxic, because if it is legitimately a scenario that is hurting you, and that might be an unhealthy situation, whatever that looks like, it could be very different for a lot of people. You don't have to burn the whole thing down. Obviously, however you leave, I always believe that however you leave someplace is really going to set you up for how you enter the next thing. And so I didn't want to
Preach.
I didn't want to turn into this. I'm just on this cycle. I'm just repeating the same mistake. If you've ever worked in a place, whether it be a corporate office environment, a church, nonprofit, it doesn't matter, and there was someone who was difficult to work with, like we've all had those people.
Never.
Yeah.
You both looked at me, and I'm concerned.
to Nick, I am that person. No, but like the reality is you all face it, and so your options in those scenarios are, okay, number one, this is a person. This is a person who is not a dispensable object. This person is a child of God. They're a person, and we exist for people. And so I can't just go, you know what, this person doesn't matter to me. They have a livelihood. They have a family. They have a passion. They have things that really matter to them, just like things matter to me. We just don't align on certain things. So how do I overcome this scenario? And sometimes that can be really difficult. And what I had to learn, working in organizations, it was almost like in the 20 years I was in ministry full time, it was almost like every place I went, if I didn't tackle the situation here, if I didn't deal with it, and by tackle, I mean in myself, I can't change so-and-so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't just go to HR every day and be like, if your organization has an HR, I can't just go there every day and be
what's HR? What is that?
Human resources. I can't just go there every day though and say the same thing. And at some point, I'm going to become the problem. I'm just the boy who cried wolf. So I have to figure it out in me. How do I mitigate how this makes me feel?
Yeah.
And how do I look at this scenario so that I don't take things personal?
Yeah.
Right.
It's great.
And so I had to learn that, because what I found out is if I just jumped ship without tackling that issue, guess what? Guess who appeared at my next job? Not that same person, obviously, but the embodiment of it appeared wherever I was, and it would repeat itself again and again and again. And so you got to face it. You got to face it in yourself. You got to realize, man, you know what? What is that really? This is bothering me about this scenario, but why does it bother me? What about me causes this to be such a big deal? Now, if you're working at a church and you're going through that, ask yourself that. That's the first step. If you're like, man, I feel like I'm going through a hard time and I think I just want to quit. I just want to walk away. And my answer is going to be, I got a better job. But the reality is I'm hurt. I'm wounded. I feel betrayed. What is it about that journey? Now, you might have a very valid excuse, so I'm not writing that off. But the first place you go with that is with yourself. And there is a healthy process to go up the ladder to that. If you're a leader in the church and you have people in your organization that are feeling some of those things, you have to ask yourself the same question. What about me is potentially a part of this? What about me might I need to fix? You might have the repetition on your side might not be that you keep ending up at a certain place with the same problem in a different face. It might be that you keep getting new employees and new team members and the same problem keeps resurfacing. What is the common denominator in that?
What's everybody's problem?
Yeah, everybody's got.
What is everybody else's problem? I don't understand.
It's got to be them. I can't possibly have been the common denominator in this. It takes a honest and humble look to go there. But I remember working with a church years ago, and
What's their name?
Where are they located?
What?
Does it rhyme with? I'm just kidding.
Oh, gee.
I'm not doing it.
Like we said, this is not that podcast. But they, it was a good guy. He was doing a great work and had a really happening church plant that was growing, and he kept running through creative directors, and he'd gone through like 4 creative directors in less than 2 years, and so we were working on a project with him, and I kept, struggling. Sometimes it was a hit, sometimes it was a miss, and so this one project just couldn't get clearance to go anywhere. It was like we can't get it approved. It's like we're hitting a brick wall. So I'm like, hey, let's deal with it. Let's go sit down. We're gonna go grab some food and talk, and chat about why we're not being able to connect to this vision. And so I said, man, when you see this, like, what do you feel like is missing? Well, I really feel like it needs to be more bold. Like it needs to have more color in it. So I looked down at the design, which was bright and bold, full of color, right? Multiple tones of color. And I said, what do you like? So you don't see this. And I pointed it out. You don't see this color right here. Like you don't see, like, is that not bold? And like, when you say bold, what does that mean? I'm trying to define what they mean. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm colorblind. And
so what is bold then if you're colorblind?
And so I said, wait a minute. When you play golf, because I knew you play golf, what color is the grass? And he goes, orange. And I said, okay, you don't need to be calling the shots at design because you have a physical impairment that prevents you from being able to see the world like everybody else. And that's okay. That's totally, you can approve vision, you can approve big ideas, you can approve all these things. But if you're approving design, you're not seeing design like everyone else sees it. There's no possible way for them to create a system that interprets it so that you can see the color because you can't see color. And he was like, oh, no one had ever told him that before. No one had ever said that to him. So it didn't come out of a place, let me say it this way, it didn't come out of a place of like dishonor and like frustration and like disagreement. It was like,
perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, no, it came to me. It was like,
no, I'm just saying, it's like, hey, perhaps this might be the reason.
Well, for me, it was like, if you've ever seen The Sixth Sense, and like Bruce Willis's character realizes that he's dead.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, if you haven't seen The Sixth Sense yet, you just spoiler alert. But if you haven't seen The Sixth Sense yet, where have you been?
Yeah.
But still, he realizes at the end of the movie, like he's been dead the whole time, and it's like all the little flashes of things. And so that's what happened in that moment when he said I was colorblind. I looked down at his phone, and it was inverted color-wise. I looked at his iPad, it was inverted. I looked, everything in his life was basically trying to, it's like, what do you call it? Like assisted settings on those devices, like all the things in his life. He had learned to see a red light based on where it was on the sign, not because it's the color red.
Wow.
And so he had trained himself to overcome his disability, but no one else was trained to overcome his disability.
And that example is not to take a shot at anybody.
No.
It actually is, what is your assisted settings? What are your assisted?
That's good.
Ask that question, because for me, as I've transitioned, went through transitions, there's, you begin to notice patterns, not with the organizations, but with myself. And you have to do the hard work and take extreme ownership over your stuff.
Yeah.
Take extreme ownership
That's
over
good.
your identity. Take extreme ownership over your calling, not anybody else's, because that's what you're ultimately responsible for. I had a spiritual dad in my life tell me one time that titles come and go, but your calling never leaves you. Titles will come and go, and your calling never leaves you. So the reality is, everything you do in your life, every position you've ever held is interim.
Yeah.
If you're a senior pastor and you're listening to this, you're interim senior pastor. If you're a worship leader and you're listening to this, you're interim worship leader. If you are a creative director and listening to this, or a creative pastor, you're the interim creative pastor, because you're not going to do it forever. So if we have that mindset going in, that it's not going to change my calling, I want to encourage you, take extreme ownership of your identity. And part of taking extreme ownership of your identity means that you take extreme ownership of your flaws and your trauma.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with and understand your tendencies in hard situations with difficult people and whatever those things are. You got to continue to get better and find healing so that when the transition comes, not if, when the transition comes, you're ready to deal with it in a way and walk through it in a way where you can leave with your head held high, honoring the people. And here's the thing. I'm a big honor guy. And so honor is really important to me. But I also know that when you do ministry, it's more than just a contractual, transactional thing. I can't not lead worship with my whole heart. I can't not design something or create something that's going to affect life change and affect people without my whole heart being in it. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're in ministry, you're invested on a deep heart level. You've chosen to say, I actually don't want to be in a transactional world. I want to live in a world where my heart is fully vested in my work, yet my identity is fully vested in who God says I am, not what I produce. There's a distinction there. So identity is one thing, and then what we do in a covenant way is another thing. Then, so the reality is even if you transition well, it still will hurt. And honestly, if it doesn't hurt, something was wrong.
Yeah. Well, we're human. I mean, transition in any format isn't easy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because you're leaving something behind and you feel like you're closing a chapter. So that's not innately a bad thing. That's a natural process. Like you just said, like you're an interim. Mm-hmm. We're all here for a season wherever we're at.
Yeah.
And so what is coming down the road next, and how am I not just preparing myself for that, but preparing where I'm at for that?
Right.
Like I'm in this chair right now. I will not be in this chair forever.
Yeah.
Whoever steps into this chair after me, what have I done to lay the groundwork?
Yeah.
Have I sown distrust that they're going to have to try to undo when they come in? Or have I worked with the leadership to help build a transparency where we can talk about our hurts and we can talk about our feelings?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. How many people, I'd love to know how many people are listening to this that have no idea how to transition out of what they're doing. In other words, have you started or do you know what an exit plan would look like for your current position? Or would it be something that's sprung on you? I talked to a senior pastor who was planting a church just a couple of years ago, and he told me he already had his transition plan in place.
Wow.
He knew, and it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna do this for 6 months. I mean, he knew he was gonna plant and pastor, and he knew what his transition plan was. He knew when it was gonna happen. And I was like, you began with the end in mind.
Ooh.
And that is so powerful in ministry, guys, because transitioning creates culture.
Yeah.
We say language creates culture, but man, how you transition will affect the morale of every single person on your staff, in your leadership, and in the church. How you speak about your leadership, how you speak about your church once you left, all of those things matter. So transitioning well is not just, hey, I've got 2 weeks left and we're good, and then you leave. Yeah. Transitioning well carries on forever.
Yeah.
Because the minute that you were on staff at a church, people are always going to connect you with that ministry if they know you were a part of it on whatever level. So transitioning well is continuing for me. It's continuing for you. And we get to write on our legacy of how are we honoring? How are we speaking? How are we, what culture are we creating with the people that we worked with? And all of those things.
Well, and it is possible to leave a negative situation in a way that is still honorable. Mm-hmm. My challenge to you as a leader or as a team member going through a situation that you feel like is negative. I remember I was working at an organization, and there was a kind of a spirit of fear that permeated. I remember at the season, like everybody was afraid to lose their job for no reason. Like I had all the favor in the world, and yet every time I went to scan my badge and the color turned green, which meant I had access to the security area that I worked in, I still had a job, right? That's when I kind of was going through my head. And one time at like the coffee bar downstairs, I made a joke about it, because that's how I deal with my feelings, is I joke and I eat them. But I was joking about it, and 3 other people that were down there were like, "You do that too?" And I realized that this wasn't just me. I realized that this is an organizational wide thing. So I don't have the power as a lower level employee to fix that. And so eventually I accepted another position within that same organization and went to tell my current boss that I was transitioning out. And he was the executive director of the organization. And so he sat me down very graciously and said, "I really wish you had," he said, I'm happy for you, first of all. Like I'm I understand. I really wish you had come to me first and been honest about the situation that you were having, because now you've already set things in motion, and I'm not going to undo that. I can't undo that, but I might have been able to work with this and fix this. And he said, chances are, if you're going through this, other people are also going through it, and your honesty to me before this became a situation that was impassable might have prevented all of this from happening. And so my challenge to you as a leader is be able to hear when that happens. Have your heart and your mind prepared for when someone comes to you and says, I'm going through something. This is hard. I'm being abused in, psychological way, in other ways. It doesn't matter. Like something is happening in my workplace environment that I don't feel safe. I'm not able to spend time with my family. I'm working extra hours without being asked to, but being expected to. There's all these layers of what it looks like to work in a church that can be very difficult and not communicated sometimes. And so my challenge to you as a leader, first off, be willing to hear that out before you jump to conclusions and just go straight to the line of dishonor. Be willing to hear it out. Like this leader was with me. And I was rebuked in that moment, because I'm like, man, you're right. Like I could have avoided a lot of hardship if I had just been able to have that communication. All I had ever known about dealing with a hardship situation was move on quietly. Like don't raise too many alarms. Don't speak about it too much. Like get out of the way and just let it be. And you can tell people whatever, right? Whatever you need to say is fine, but I had to get out. Instead of actually dealing with the scenario. And then my challenge to you, if you're going through that and you're the employee, is prepare your heart, examine yourself to see if what is in you that's preventing you from being honest in a loving way. It's hard to do it when you're hurt.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. Hurt people. I get it. Like when you're in a corner and you're wounded, like you're going to lash out. So work it out in yourself so that you can honestly sit face to face and have that honest conversation with your leadership and say, man, this is what's happening. It might not be reciprocated. That understanding, that grace might not be, and that's okay. You've done what you need to do though. Yeah. And said, okay, I'm bringing this to you. This is an issue that's preventing me from really moving forward in my position here. I would love to be able to figure this out. I would love to be able to handle this. And it's helpful to know that I know this is a risk, but if you've already got plan B figured out and you've already gone down, it's kind of too late to really invest in it. Right. And I understand that's a risk. I do. But you have to build that relationship on trust. And a healthy organization will hear you out. I remember I heard Andy Stanley say this one time. And I love hearing him speak, and I'm a big Andy Stanley fan, but I was at an event, and I was sitting in a row with the people that I was working at this organization, including my boss. Oh, no. That was in a same negative situation that I didn't know how to deal with yet. So we'd all gone to this event together, and Andy gets up there and he's like, if you're in a healthy relationship, he says, if you're in a healthy organization, you can replicate yourself again and again and again, and you'll always have a place. If you're in a healthy, and he started laying out the things of what a healthy organization looked like. And I immediately started realizing this is not where I'm at. And then he goes, if you're in an unhealthy organization, and he stops and he walks up to the front of the stage and he screams at the top of his lungs, get out. And I just remember like every bone in my body felt like it was 1,000,000 pounds. And like the air got sucked out of my lungs because I realized that, he gave instructions like we're talking about of the proper way to do that.
And like 50,000 people got up and walked away.
Yeah. But it was like,
Good night.
But he talked about how to do it in a respectful way. But he laid the groundwork and said, there are tons of people that need the gift that's inside of you. So his argument to those people was, don't sell yourself short for how God wants to use you. But don't let that go to your head either. So that you're not listening to logic and you're not listening to reason and you're not willing to accept guidance in that journey. So
I jotted down 3 things here that we want to leave you with as we kind of wrap this episode when it comes to transitioning well. These are things that I employed and I felt like they really helped me. So the first is going to be this: leave with love. Love is what got you into ministry. Love is what's going to help get you out. So if love got you here, love is going to get you there. The second thing is this: find godly counsel. Find godly counsel. So I don't know who those safe people are in your life. I don't know who those spiritual moms and dads are. That's a matter of prayer. That's a matter of your community. But somebody has to know. And it could be people in your staff. It could be go directly to your leader. It may not be either, right? So that's a matter of prayer for you to hear from God and find, man, I need counsel. I need wisdom. Go get wisdom on timing and all of those things. The third thing I would say is make room for God to move, both in your life and in the life of your church and your leadership. Because, like you were saying, if you don't give people an opportunity to be gracious on your way out, that's a disservice to them. And I was surprised many times in one of my transitions specifically, how gracious my leader was to me. And it took a lot for me to make room for God to move and to get me there. But I did, and it was so worth it. And so, again, lead with love, lead with honor, give people an opportunity to lean in. And at the same time, like, if you are, when that time comes for you to transition, lean in. God will speak to you and lead you and guide you and in the timing of it all, right? We always say, like, the right thing in the wrong time is still the wrong thing, right? So as you're thinking about transition,
that's good.
It has to be the right thing at the right time. If you want to transition well, the right thing in the right time. And so that's a whole other podcast probably. We could talk about that later. But again, we're Yellow Box. We care about you. We care about creatives. We care about church. We believe in the local church. We want churches to be healthy. We want churches to be thriving. We want creatives to be healthy and thriving. We want creative processes to be healthy and thriving. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time. God bless.